Onto the story now. Young African people between the ages of 21 and 28 are being recognized for their role in society and the positive impact they have been making in their communities. The African Youth Summit will be taking place from the 17th to the 28th of October. It's part of a week of skills development, relationship building and networking alongside other influential Africans. The summit will allow these young people to become eligible for grant funding to help and promote their work. Now, to tell us more about this, I'm joined by Courtney Gieler, a Global Changemakers alumni. Good evening to you, Courtney. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsnight. Firstly, let's start by you telling us what exactly the African Youth Summit is all about.
I think you encapsulated it perfectly. It is a week developing the capacity of young change makers to create positive change in their communities. So there'll be networking to build supportive networks and partnerships. There'll be a lot of skills development. And then afterwards, as you mentioned, they'll have the opportunity to apply for grant funding to make their projects a reality in their communities.
So, Courtney, talk to us about the reason behind a summit of this nature. Where did you see a loophole and a need for a platform like this?
So speaking from my own experience as an alumni, I attended the summit in 2016. The need was really, I think for me personally, to have someone to believe in you and to back you as a change maker, to have someone say that despite your young age, you actually can have a difference in your community. Secondly, it was an idea, or rather, I didn't know what I didn't know until I developed key skills that have been instrumental in helping me to create positive change in my communities. And lastly, it is that connecting young people from across the world for information sharing, peer mentorship, and that is the gap that we are trying to fill.
And then what kind of people are these change makers that you are looking for? What type of work do they need to be doing in their community? So ultimately, who can get involved?
Anyone who is working to create a positive change in their community across the wide spectrum of issues. So looking at whether they're looking at gender or climate or energy or corruption or any number of issues, as long as they are working to create that positive change in their community and they are committed to doing so, is eligible to apply if they're between the ages of 21 and 28 from or living in Africa.
Okay, so this is across Africa, so there needs to be a specific selection process and criteria. Can you maybe expand on that?
So we're looking for demonstrated impact. We're also looking for people who are committed to continuing this work in their communities so that they'll take the skills and the networking and the investment in them from the summit and they'll put that to use in their communities. And we're also looking for potential for impact. Oftentimes people will because it's a competitive selection process, people will feel like, oh, maybe I haven't done enough. But really that potential to create impact and that passion and that drive and commitment is what we're trying to look for. As hard as that is to find through a selection process, that's kind of what we're looking for in our change makers.
And then what about funding and travel costs and other additional costs that might be involved? Would you guys be making sure that these selected individuals are funded and their costs are covered?
Yes, so that's something that's incredibly important to us. We've worked with as global change makers, I've worked with young change makers from all over the world, from remote communities to refugee camps to, caves in Afghanistan. And we really want to make sure that our summits are as accessible as possible. So for the people who are selected to attend, their flights, travel, accommodation, room and board, everything will be covered for the duration of the summit.
Amazing. And then, Courtney, how do people get involved? Do they need to go to a website? Do they need to check out your social media pages? How does someone get involved?
They can do either. You can plug into Google African Youth Summit 2023. Alternatively, you can find global change makers across all social media platforms. And if you are passionate about creating change in your community, I would highly encourage you to check this out. It was something that changed my life. Receiving a grant from Global Change Makers allowed me to create an NGO to impact my community. And that was impossible to me as a 21-year-old to receive that funding anywhere else. If you're looking to create change, if funding is one of your challenges, if you want to develop those key skills, I highly encourage you to check it out on our website or social media.
Amazing. And is there a specific deadline? When is the deadline for these applications?
Yes, the 10th of June. So the countdown has begun. The last week it's your last week to apply. And 10th of June, midnight Central African time.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Courtney, for sharing this amazing initiative. I'm sure a lot of young South Africans and Africans, for that matter, hearing about this for the first time will definitely be interested. And I hope that they will then head over to the website or the various social media pages to get involved. Thank you very much for your time and for your insights as well.